Have you ever looked at someone in power and wondered if they are guiding their people or simply hiding behind their title? In their book, The Root Within, authors Gregory Hayes and Kenneth Johnson propose a sobering answer. What we often mistake for commanding leadership at the top is in reality a deep-seated fear that has been handed authority. When a department suffocates, a family unit fractures, or a company rots inside, the instinct is to blame a shifting market or external circumstances. But the true architect of that destruction is sitting right at the head of the table. We tend to think of insecurity as a passing moment of self-doubt or a slight hesitation, but it is much more severe. It is a chronic, systemic terror of exposure, a persistent whisper that you are irrelevant and inadequate. To silence that whisper, this fear disguises itself as ambition. The person builds an elaborate, aggressive masquerade to convince the world and themselves that the internal emptiness isn't there. Acquiring power does not cure this wound. It merely buys the fearful individual a heavier crown and a much larger stage on which to perform their panic. We are conditioned to view aggressive, domineering behavior as a hallmark of executive strength. In truth, these behaviors are tightly worn defensive costumes. This diagram breaks down insecure leadership. Look at arrogance. Barking orders and inflating titles isn't confidence. It drowns out the terror of being ignored. Then the authoritarian enforces absolute obedience, crushing dissent. This iron grip is simply concealing an incredibly fragile ego. Because any challenge threatens to shatter this illusion, they exile anyone who speaks the truth, surrounding themselves with flatterers who never question the performance. They demand absolute loyalty and constant affirmation. This doesn't build a unified team. It is a frantic, daily effort to medicate their own internal panic. The volume of their commands is a direct measure of their fear. Dominance here is never proof of a leader's capability. It is an exhausting, desperate routine to keep their internal mask from slipping. But not all insecure leadership is loud. Often it takes the form of quiet suffocation, a relentless tightening of control over every minor detail. This cycle illustrates how that control manifests. The paranoid leader sees a threat in every colleague and a rival in every ally, spreading a culture of distrust that poisons the workplace. They refuse to delegate even the smallest tasks. If the team succeeded without their direct intervention, it would prove they are not indispensable. They will claim this level of scrutiny is simply about maintaining high standards. In reality, that language is weaponized to justify surveillance and mask their inability to let go. This same fear breeds indecision. Terrified that a wrong choice will expose them to criticism, the insecure leader stalls, avoiding decisions altogether under the guise of endless planning. The tragedy is that this iron grip achieves the exact opposite of its goal. By suffocating the team's momentum, the insecure leader guarantees the very collapse they were trying so desperately to prevent. Up until this point, the wound has been private. But when insecurity is seated in a position of power, the damage does not stay contained. This graphic tracks the cascading failure of that wound. In an organization, a fearful boss questions every new idea and stalls every risk, choking out innovation until progress simply flatlines. Inside a family, a parent's need to dominate mistakes fear for wisdom. Instead of guiding their children, they demand absolute compliance, creating permanent distance and resentment. At the national level, the stakes are catastrophic. When a leader's personal paranoia is written into policy, the state rots, shackling its citizens to maintain the illusion of order. This diagram illustrates the concentric ripples of that destruction. A single, unhealed psyche at the center scales outward, turning private care into the collective ruin of communities, movements, and entire nations. Fear-driven leadership does not build anything sustainable. It operates strictly as a contagion, consuming the trust, energy, and potential of everyone forced to exist within its radius. The mechanics of this collapse point to a merciless reality. Those who refuse to confront and lead themselves will inevitably devour the people they are supposed to guide. We treat power as a mask hiding our flaws, but authority acts as a mirror, magnifying every insecurity and fear we refuse to face. Any structure built to soothe an ego, whether a household, a corporation, or an empire, is constructed entirely of glass. Eventually, the pressure mounts and the entire edifice shatters, which leaves us with a sobering consideration. The most dangerous element in any room might not be external competition or a flawed strategy, but an unhealed wound that has been handed a title. If you want to understand the hidden currents driving human behavior, subscribe to our channel as we continue exploring the profound insights of the root within. Because before anyone can genuinely guide others, they must first survive the terrifying vulnerability of facing their own fears in the dark.